All right, so now for weightlifting, I'm looking at Joel's workouts here, and this could work for anybody really, no matter where they are in their training. So what we're looking at is day one. As you can see, it's titled Technique Day in the warm-up here. And this snatch warm-up is really something I want them to begin to memorize so that they could go in without thinking to their meets or wherever they're lifting and just get warm. Something super simple. This does not need to be complicated, but it needs to be executed as if there were 200 pounds on the bar. So I want them to do that crisp, fast. By the time they get there, like we're moving. So once we get to there, I think we just need to snatch and clean and jerk twice a week. If we do that, our lifters are gonna get better, but we need to manage the load on the first day that they lift. So this is gonna be no higher than, I would say, you'll see this one says 50 to 60. I don't think anybody needs to go higher than 65% on this. If you see them trying to go higher, bring it down, because the point is to move well, not move a lot of weight. That'll be saved for later in the week. I like to have this on a timer. If there are 3 things in the complex, 2.5 minutes is probably right there in the sweet spot. 2 things, 2 minutes, and there's always going to be at least 2 things. So you want these 3 things to build on each other. So you always want to do the shortest version of the movement first. So a high pull, although it's a big long pull, it's still just half of the movement, mid-thigh to about the chest with the bar. So that's going to be your first one. And then we're going to go down to the knee. We're actually going to do a power snatch, and we're going to go one below the knee. So you do a small movement coming from the mid-thigh to the shoulders, do a bigger movement from above the knee to the power position, and then the biggest movement is going to be below the knee into a full snatch. Typically, you always want to do your full after the power, because then they're thinking about pulling under the bar, and they'll be able to transition that to the full. Also, you're a little bit more tired, so you always want to do a full last. 5 rounds, 50 to 60%, and then we want to clean and jerk on that day too, because a meet is going to demand us to do so. So this is for someone who knows what a snatch and clean and jerk is. This is for someone who knows... they don't have to ask questions like, what grip do I use for a snatch? They know it. They've established a baseline, 1 rep max, most likely. And if this is for a more beginner person, you're going to have to simplify this and probably do no more than 2 things per complex. And work on powers most of the time for newer people. But, Joel's been seasoned. He's been to AO. He knows what he's doing a little bit, so we can kind of let it rip with him a little bit, but still keeping it under 65%. Clean and jerk, very similar. He just needs to work on building power through the middle, from the mid-thigh to the hip. The bar slows down for him, so we need to get speed through there. So I'm going to start him right on the sticky point, and you have to be fast and explosive if you're stopped right there to get it to that high pull. We're hoping that transfers through when he does the second lift, which is the power from the floor. And then push press is because he has trouble extending on his jerk. He cuts it short, and it's a real abbreviated jerk. We're trying to get long and use lots of legs there. So again, similar powerlifting, we're always attacking the weakness. That's the goal. Not here to give them stuff that they're good at. Once in a while we will. That is fun, but for the most part, they want coaching. They want to get better. We got to make sure that we're doing stuff that they're not good at. Second day, this is going to vary based on the person. I want conditioning for him. I want him to be in better general physical preparation shape. So we do 10 squats every 2 minutes. I typically say don't give them assigned weights, but this is a hard format to learn. So I want him to start low at 95 pounds and work up from there. That's probably like 33% of his front squat. So if you're doing that for someone else, you can maybe start with 33% and see how it feels. Typically a weightlifter doing this type of program will have some intuition around what to do anyways, and make sure they stay on the clock for that every 2 minutes. You can taper that down as the weeks go on to get it more strength based. So week 2 could be 8 squats. Week 3 can be 6, 4, and then maybe doubles. And if you could do those doubles fatigued, you can for sure clean that weight. So if I could do a double fatigued for for 6 rounds with only like a 1.5 minute 40 rest at 250. Like, there's no way that I can't clean that when I go to the bar on Friday. Again, his is very general physical population, general physical preparedness, excuse me. We just got to get him more fit. So jumping, doing core work down here, overhead walking lunges, stability is definitely something you want to work on for everybody. And assault bike is just good for conditioning. Got to burn calories. ROMWOD foam roll, probably the most important day. Something you want to monitor if they're not doing. And then this is going to be a more snatch technique day. So you see your warm up, A1, 2, 3. Snatch pulls, I want him to hold in the extended position. As I mentioned before, he has trouble creating force from the mid thigh to the hip. I want him to feel what extension feels like. He's not creating force because he's not extending. So if we hold at extension, triple extension, meaning your ankles are all the way open and flexed and only your toes are on the ground. Your knees are locked, so that's 2. And then the triple is your hips are all the way forward, glutes tight, abs tight, not leaning back through your lower lumbar, but more in a neutral position, extension, ankles, knees, and hips. You're about to jump is the way to think about that. And then another pull, snatch grip pull, pausing mid-thigh. So this is where you can kind of like use your powerlifting knowledge to infuse it into these different variations on Thursday. Have some fun with it. Throw some tough ones at them. Have them descend with tempo. Deficit if they're having trouble. If they're yanking the bar off the floor, do a deficit. And then you have to drive the bar off the floor with your legs. Pausing to make sure they stay out in front of the bar. Regular pulls, like shrugs, are great. What else do we do on this day? And then you'll see below is more technique on overhead snatch balance. So that's speed and overhead stability, which we all need a lot of. So technique, that can be a push press type of thing. That can be, I wouldn't do anything heavy. As you'll see, it stays between 60 and 70 because the next day you're snatching above 70% and clean and jerking above 70% and maybe even up to 90 depending on where you're at. So keep this technique focus. I'd say you could do one heavy thing right here. As you'll see, that's at 100%. Like a snatch pull at 100%. Still isn't that heavy on the central nervous system. It might feel heavy, but it's not going to be super taxing because like that's maybe like 185 pound, 3 pulls, 4 rounds at 185. That's not too much, but it will feel difficult enough and it will carry over when I get to the next day, which is basically the version of max effort for Olympic weightlifting. We're making this feel like a kind of a meet day where you're doing both. I don't have him on a timer. You may need to put certain people on timers on these. Again, snatch warm up, same thing. Building up to RPE 7 power snatch triples. This is his week 1. That RPE will go up as we descend into the next weeks. We'll get into full, we'll get into doubles, and then we'll have him do a hard variation work week 3. Again, doubles, and then week 4, sometimes they need a 5th week to get to it. Snatch waves and clean jerk waves in the same day. So these will be, I don't think I have it down here for him yet. I don't know his numbers. Let me flip over to May. She had waves here. She has waves coming up this Friday. And this is kind of to let them feel what a meet would feel like. Even if they've done one before, it's good to revisit. Just doing 1 rep, 35. Another rep with a 3 kilo increase to 38. And then a 2 kilo increase, which is similar to what I would have someone do in a meet. You start low and then you finish somewhere around their 1 rep or anticipated 1 rep max. You don't want to put weights on here that they're missing a lot of. You want it to be doable, I'd say up to 90, 92, 95% there, because the accumulated volume through the clean and jerk too will be a lot. So end somewhere around a really tough single, and it might be a PR if the person's been progressing a lot, or if they're getting back into weightlifting, or if they're brand new. If they're more seasoned, it might not be a PR, but it's also a win to, if my best snatch is 85, it's a win if I'm hitting 82 too. You know, that's a real like solid thing to have under my belt as a more advanced weightlifter. So back to Joel. If they have another accessory day, I would say you're probably going to want to keep that below the ears, so not a lot of pressing. You can jerk dip. We can front squat with tempo would be something great to have in there. Another thing about this second day coming back here, I also like to alternate back squat, front squat, back squat, front squat. If you're wondering where overhead squat might fit, it could be right here. That's the third workout, but fourth day of the week. That can be overhead squat. As you can see, I alternated from week 1 snatch balance right here to behind the neck split jerk to drop snatch. So those are some other things you can go in and look at there. But yeah, just make it a variation. It's going to be useful. Attack the weakness is the general rule of thumb. If you're staring there like, I don't know what to do, visualize it, look at their videos, attack the weakness, and keep it 50 to 70% there. But yeah, so 4-week program ending with snatch waves. That'll give us an idea of how this person can perform in their weightlifting in a meet.